Natsume's Book of Friends, or Natsume Yujincho if you want its Japanese name, is an anime that has long been on my radar. If like me, you often peruse my anime list in search of good anime, then you would notice that Natsume's Book of Friends is consistently one of the highest rated shows around. What's even crazier is that this is a series that began airing in 2008 and is still going strong with its 7th season airing in 2024. Somehow, this anime has been able to maintain its high level of quality for 16 years whilst retaining a very loyal following, which is mightily impressive, especially when you consider that this isn't always the happiest of shows and its episodic nature being a potential turn-off for audiences. This is a show that should not be binged, but instead is something that you should take your time with and properly enjoy. The story begins with our lead and best boy, Natsume Takahashi, sprinting through the woods as he's chased by this one-eyed creature, a creature known as a yokai. Yokai, for those unfamiliar, are supernatural beings and spirits littered throughout the annals of Japanese folklore, with the kanji for yokai being comprised of two characters that translate to the words suspicious and doubtful. Whilst this may lead you to assume that yokai are universally untrustworthy entities, that is not the case. In folklore, the behaviour of yokai varies greatly, with some being malevolent and mischievous, toying with humans and leading them into traps, whilst others are represented as far kinder, showing benevolence to the humans around them. This first episode has not yet revealed which type of personality this one-eyed yokai harbours. Bursting out of the woods, Natsume lands at the feet of two of his classmates, Kitamoto and Nishimura. After asking for the whereabouts of the nearest shrine, Natsume sprints off once more, leaving them confused. For you see, the yokai are invisible to the average person, but not to Natsume, who has been bestowed with eyes capable of seeing every yokai around him, an ability which he views as a curse due to resulting in yokai often meddling in his life, with it also absolutely destroying his childhood, with him being ostracised by other children and the adults around him due to reacting to things that weren't there. No one believed him, and instead he was viewed as a freak to be avoided, a liar that no one should listen to. All whilst he had to deal with the horrifying creatures around him that love to taunt and scare him. On top of all this awfulness, Natsume is an orphan, with both his parents dying when he was very young, and with him having only the faintest memory of his father, meaning that he must live with foster parents who are creeped out by this boy who screams and says there are things that aren't there, resulting in Natsume being passed between different families like a hot potato no one wants. Understandably, this has caused Natsume to be fearful of the yokai around him and closed off to other people, not wanting to share his secret out of fear that he'll be once again deemed a freak. Before Natsume can reach the shrine, the yokai is able to grab hold of him. However, something odd happens. This yokai begins to refer to him as Reiko and asks him to return it. Return what exactly? Well, you'll find out in just a second. Be patient. With Natsume slowly being crushed to death, the situation seems dire. Luckily, Natsume has a great idea. He decides to give this thing a nice big kick in the face, causing the yokai to drop him. Finally reaching the shrine, Natsume showcases another one of his abilities, terrible spatial awareness, as he trips over and breaks a seal within the shrine, allowing a terrifying and powerful yokai to escape. That's right, it's Turbo Granny, Nyanko-Sensei, the other main character of this series. After a brief stare down, this canonically fugly cat recognises the boy before him, but not as Natsume Takahashi. Instead he refers to him as Natsume Reiko. Reiko, just like that Cyclops thing from earlier, called him in case you have short-term memory loss. Takahashi then confirms to his cat that he isn't Reiko, with Reiko actually being his grandmother's name. Reminiscing on the past, this yokai reveals some info about Natsume's nan. It turns out that she was quite similar to him. She too could see the yokai around her, and she too was lonely. Oh, so very lonely. But what of the Book of Friends? The cat asks. Do you know where it is? Before we can properly answer, and even ask what the book is, only providing some vague recollection of it being amongst his dead grandma's stuff, the cat is gone. Returning home, we get to meet his current foster parents, and let's just say, they're the best. No spoilers here, but they truly love Natsume and are really doing their best to counteract any injustices he's faced from previous foster homes. He's a lonely boy, hurt by previous carers, yet they refuse to keep him alone. You'll love them, and I'm glad that in later seasons, we get to learn more about them and how they came across Natsume, although Natsume still doesn't tell them of his power out of fear that they'd reject him. But anyway, we're here to talk about episode 1, so let's carry on with that. Now in his bedroom, Natsume looks through his grandma's stuff, finding something that may be this so-called book of friends, something which gets confirmed to him when Nyanko-Sensei bursts out of thin air trying to claim it. However, things don't quite go to plan for Nyanko-Sensei.
Oh my god, stop bro, I'm stuck! Can you help me?
Realising that things aren't going as he had hoped, Nyanko-Sensei suggests a deal. He'll be Natsume's bodyguard, protecting him from yokai who wish to have the Book of Friends. In exchange, once Natsume dies, Sensei will get the book. But why does Nyanko-Sensei and all these other yokai want this book filled with scribbles? Well, the scribbles are actually names. Names of the yokai that Reiko fought and beat. It is said that whoever holds the Book of Friends can call upon these names to have the yokai come to their aid. In fact, the yokai whose names are in the book must do whatever they are told and are powerless against these commands. Therefore, whoever has hold of this book would be incredibly powerful. Hence why all the yokai want it. After being chased once again, Natsume and Nyanko-Sensei are together in the woods, where he reveals his true form in an attempt to steal the Book of Friends. However, Natsume has a trick up his sleeve, an arm, which leads to a hand, which creates a fist, which leads to a punch in the face for Nyanko-Sensei. The two then discuss the Book of Friends when Natsume reveals that he would like to return the names with Sensei's help, and should he die along the way, coming across an evil yokai, then so be it. Sensei can have the book. Nyanko agrees and tells Natsume how he can return the names, which he instantly does with the Cyclops, as that is what she had been asking him to return. Doing so allows Natsume, and of course us, to see this yokai's memories, allowing us to see how this yokai came across Reiko and gives us an inkling as to who Reiko actually was, as well as showing how happy this yokai was after talking to her, and how lonely she was after Reiko never called on her and never visited her again. The yokai was truly not a bad person and only wanted to be let go from this loneliness, even asking if Reiko is okay after Natsume returns her name. Loneliness is the central theme of this show and the one thing that binds all the characters together. But this series is not just about loneliness, but also the oftentimes small connections that we make with people to stave off that loneliness. What I love about this show is even though it's episodic and you can sort of jump into any episode should you wish, there is an ongoing story and progression here. The relationship between Natsume and Nyanko-Sensei changes over time, and the show constantly introduces new characters. There are so many characters in this anime, most of whom only appear in one episode. Yet there are some that do reappear throughout the series, and you're always happy to see them again since you don't want them to be alone anymore and for them to form connections with Natsume and the other characters around them. And it's always tragic when you realise that certain characters won't be returning. The human characters and friends of Natsume are lonely because they're teenagers with their own insecurities and wishes to belong, or they're exorcists that are cut off from society and typical social situations due to the nature of their job and powers. And then there's the yokai who are lonely because that's sadly how the yokai seem to be. Humans can't see them, so they can't communicate with us, and they generally don't seem to form connections with a yokai, so a lot of them are sad and alone for so long, and that makes them both tragic and really sympathetic, especially as a lot of them don't get happy endings, or at least what we would consider a happy ending. Oftentimes, Natsume can only give them as close to a happy ending as he possibly can, and we like the characters just have to accept that, which results in this being a very moving anime, often subtly moving. You really do connect with these characters even if they only appear in one episode, and it's always sad when you reach the end of said episode and have to say goodbye to them forever. Every now and then, they'll introduce a character that I'll be crossing my fingers, praying will return again, and I'm always ecstatic when they do, because they're always so excited to bump into Natsume again, and it's just so wholesome seeing Natsume once again interact with them now that he's familiar with them. Unsurprisingly, given the central theme of loneliness, of course I'd enjoy seeing all these characters being excited to cross paths once more, and also getting to see how they've changed over time, just like when you see someone in real life that you haven't seen for a while, even if it's just to see how they've all come together to form a fan club for their beloved Natsume. Of course this show wouldn't work as well without the characters being fantastic.
また名前を返すのかさあ、ますます友人帳が薄くなるではないか。そのうち天気を得ぬほどの大物が来て、この生意気なガキを食ってくれんの待っておるのに。こら、にゃんこ。
Natsume is a brilliant lead character. You see how he softens as the series progresses. At the end of the first episode, he states that he still dislikes the yokai despite having a better understanding of them. That's definitely not how he feels about them by the end of season 7. Natsume grows to love and truly understand the yokai around him, to the point that he's even able to recontextualize some of the events that happened to him as a child, realizing that the yokai that were messing with him were also lonely and simply just wanted to play with him. He's an awkward fellow, lacking the friends and connections many people make in their youth, resulting in him being unsure of how to treat those around him. He's kind, but sometimes he lacks the subtlety of others and instead blurts out how he truly feels about his friends, making it clear just how much he cares for them. There's a great scene near the end of season 3 that showcases just how much Natsume has progressed from the isolation of his childhood. Here Natsume is celebrating with his yokai friends, playing games with them and having fun, when all of a sudden his classmate friends show up wanting to hang out with him. And you can see that Natsume is torn. Does he stay with his yokai friends or hang with his human friends? And it's just so impactful because we know what Natsume has been through, about how humans treated him like a freak and how the yokai manipulated and toyed with him. So to see how many people care about him now, both humans and yokai, really hit me in the heart. Hitting you in the heart is something that you can expect this series to do on a regular basis. All these characters want him to be happy, and the yokai are more than willing to let him go off with his human friends since they'd already spent the day with him. Honestly, I just adore the relationship between Natsume and his friends. They worry about him just as much as he worries about them. And I like that not once in this entire series does Natsume ever actually use the Book of Friends. He only ever returns names. He never calls on the yokai or force them to do anything for him through the power of the book. He loves them and treats them with dignity and respect, something that they recognise and aids in their love for him. He's a sweet boy who was the last person that ever deserved the upbringing he received. And what helps him bring Natsume to life is the incredible voice acting afforded to him by Hiroshi Kamiya, who, if you don't know, is the most popular voice actor on my anime list. In fact, let's just speedrun his career. He voiced Yuzuru, the protagonist of Angel Beats. He voices Mephistopheles in Blue Exorcist. He voiced Ko, the protagonist of Arakawa Under the Bridge. He voices Araragi, the protagonist of the Monogatari series. He voices Jinpachi in Blue Lock. He voices All for One, young version, in My Hero Academia. He voices Rampo in Bungo Stray Dogs. He voiced Desire in Durara. He voiced Nozomu, the protagonist of Goodbye Mr. Despair. He voiced Yuta in Honey and Clover. He voices Takeda in Haikyuu. He voiced Takashi in Kuroko's Basketball. He voiced Yato, the protagonist of Noragami. He voices Trafalgar Law in One Piece. He voiced Fujino, the protagonist of Prison School. He voiced Saki-K, the protagonist of The Disastrous Life of Saki-K. He voiced Levi in Attack on Titan. And he voices Ataru, the protagonist of the Urusei Yatsura remake, among others. So obviously, with such a vast portfolio, it should come as no surprise that he voiced the protagonist of this series and is also extremely good at it. He highlights the inherent kindness within Natsume, as well as making his concern for those around him believable. He's a great character with a great voice actor. And it's not just Natsume, but also the supporting characters and their voice actors who are great too. Reiko is basically the Himmel of this show, a wonderful character that only shows up in flashbacks. She's extremely tragic because we watch as Natsume slowly pieces together her life as he crosses paths with more and more yokai and returns more and more names. It's clear that she's a kind person, and she never got the support that Natsume currently receives. Knowing that she died young before she could truly form proper relationships makes her flashbacks harder to watch. Though there is some solace in seeing how often the news of her death makes the yokai sad, as none of them are aware of her passing. It's nice to know that her life had an impact on them and that they'll carry her memory for a very long time. And her voice actor, Sanai Kobayashi, best known for voicing Lucy in Elfen Lied and Kumi in Hajime no Ippo, is fantastic in the role. There's Tanama, a classmate who becomes a great confidant for Natsume. There's Notori, an exorcist who helps Natsume out every now and then. He's also a famous actor, and I love how whenever he appears, his OST will come in as if he's trying to crowbar his way into the show. He also has a very famous voice actor, Akira Ishida. He voices Katsu in Gintama, Gaara in Naruto, Fyodor Dostoevsky in Bungo Stray Dogs, Nagisa in Evangelion, Zeref in Fairy Tail, Akaza in Demon Slayer, and Regulus in ReZero. It should go without saying that he's great in this. There's Mataba, the closest thing this series has to an antagonist, although I wouldn't call him that either. He's an exorcist who represents everything Natsume dislikes about exorcists, and yet there are layers to this person. He exercises yokai, but not all yokai are good, and he's also the head of the most powerful exorcist family, so there are responsibilities that he must uphold. He's not the bad guy you first thought he was in his initial appearance, yet he also does things in ways that you can't help but recognise as wrong. Getting Junichi Sawabe, the voice of Yame from Black Clover, Grimmjow from Bleach, Archer from Fate, and Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen was a great choice because he has the perfect voice for someone that you can't truly trust. There's Taki, a classmate of Natsume's who's obsessed with yokai and often gets dragged into Natsume's world. She's voiced by Rina Sato, who's best known for voicing Shura in Blue Exorcist, Rei in Sailor Moon, Senjimaro in Bleach, Hilling in Ranking of Kings, Makoto in Persona 5, and Mikoto in Railgun. And then there's Hirogi, one of Notori's familiars. He's voiced by Yukino Satsuki, best known for voicing Tai in Gintama, Kaname in Full Metal Panic, Kagome in Inuyasha, and Yoruichi in Bleach. However, the most surprising performance is easily for Nyanko-Sensei himself, as he's voiced by Kazuhiko Inoue, the man responsible for voicing Kakashi in Naruto. Nyanko-Sensei sounds nothing like Kakashi. In fact, this is what Nyanko-Sensei sounds like. And here is what Kakashi sounds like.
Naruto, Sakura. Omaera futari da.
Now that is range. Although you can tell they're the same voice actor whenever Nyanko goes into his true form. Nyanko-Sensei is just as good of a character as Natsume is. He begins the anime very self-centered, openly stating that he would like Natsume to die or get eaten by a yokai so that he can get the Book of Friends. Yet unsurprisingly, as time goes on, the two end up really caring for one another, with Nyanko-Sensei becoming a bit of a tsundere, constantly saving him and protecting him, but not because he cares about him or anything like that. Nyanko-Sensei is a very entertaining character because at times he can come across like Kon from Bleach, basically a punching bag with the rest of yokai clearly having a love-hate relationship with him, and with everyone who sees him describing him as Natsume's ugly cat. But then, his true form is genuinely badass, and he actually is very powerful. He can be quite callous, telling Natsume to give up on some of his adventures. He doesn't need to actually help these yokai that he's just met. It is also clear that part of him is proud that Natsume is the way that he is, and it's because of Natsume's caring nature that Nyanko-Sensei has no qualms with staying by his side as his protector. I don't know how Natsume's Book of Friends is going to end since the manga is still ongoing, but I'd be curious to see if they ever show us how the yokai respond to Natsume's death, hopefully from old age, because I'd want to know how Nyanko-Sensei responds. I already know how the other characters would, but I wonder if he'd finally be honest about his feelings and whether he'd stay with Natsume's descendants, even though the book is presumably gone now. The fact that I'm interested in something that this series may likely never show us is evidence of how deep and compelling these characters are, and I can't wait to see how much they continue to change with time.
Holy look at all this damage! And we're gonna repair it using FlexShot.
Whilst this is one of those series where animation won't make or break it, I am happy to confirm that this show has pretty good animation throughout its 7 seasons. There are even times where the show looks spectacular, though this shouldn't be a surprise as the first 4 seasons were animated by Brainspace, one of the, in my opinion, most underrated studios working at the moment. They are by no means on the level of Mappa or Bones, but they do consistently put out high quality works with good animation. For example, they're the same studio that animated To Your Eternity Season 1, My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu Season 1, Durara Season 1, Bakano, Inspector, and Golden Kamuy Season 4. They are a good studio that never get the acclaim they deserve, although that is partly on them since they drop most of their series, including Natsume's Book of Friends, with the last 3 seasons and movies being animated by Studio Shuka. If you're concerned that the animation quality drops off, I'm here to assure you that it doesn't, which makes sense since Shuka is made up of former Brainspace employees. They also did the later seasons of Durara 2. From top to bottom, Natsume's Book of Friends is a very strong anime. It's an anime that would bring me to the verge of tears as I got to watch people who deserve better struggle. I was a little unsure if I'd enjoy this anime after watching Mushishi, which is a great anime too, but that show is completely episodic with no larger narrative to it, and I was a little worried that was what I'd be getting here too, but that was not the case. There is a larger but not overbearing story to this show. Natsume's development and progression is so natural and well done that you won't even notice it, to the point that if you ever go back and rewatch the first episode, like I did for this video, you may be surprised by where Natsume started. I was genuinely shocked to hear Natsume say he disliked yokai. I was also surprised to see Kitamoto and Nishimura, the 2 classmates that Natsume bumped into at the start of the episode, view him as strange and speak about him like he was just some guy in their class, since the 2 of them are some of his closest friends in this series. Even just the way he interacted with his foster mom. Natsume is a lonely boy that the world tried to forsake, yet he's now made all these connections that at first seemed small, but have now made his world so big. This is a beautiful series and one that I highly recommend. Although I do have one issue. When will the Fox Boy come back? If Kiryu can keep popping up in this series, then so can this kid. Honestly, I just want to know he's alright. He hasn't shown up since season 3. But anyway, that's just how I feel about Natsume's Book of Friends. What about you? Do you like it? Have you seen it? Are you also hoping that they announce season 8 soon? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And whilst you're down there, do click the like button. It really helps me and this video out. And if you're feeling especially generous, then do consider subscribing. I'd love to have you become a regular viewer. But until next time, I've been Liam Nidus. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.
Bye bye!